you general language learners out there, you want to use the language to communicate, to connect with others, understand different cultures, enjoy traveling, job opportunities, etc. Well, it's a great trip. I've had a great trip. Go for it. Just continue learning every day. Be consistent. And again, focus on what you need to know.
Hi, Tim.
Hello. How are you?
I'm pretty good, and well, welcome to the podcast. First of all, it's really a pleasure to have you on.
Yeah. Yes, Alvaro. I'm doing fine. Thank you. I'm presently in a place called Sapa in North Vietnam, riding around by motor.
Nice plan. Well, we were just talking about it off camera, but I usually start out by asking my guests about the language background. But
Yeah.
with someone like you, who's learned over 30 languages in his life, it's probably gonna take us forever, right?
I can give you a quick summary.
Okay.
So my mother tongue is English.
Mhm.
My second language is Espanol, Cubano, estilo cubano,
Oh,
because I grew up in South Florida. And so, I had many friends from Cuba. And first place I lived outside the United States from age 18 was Colombia, Bogota. And so I learned to go from cubano que es muy rápido to slow, mucho más despacio, lento de Cundinamarca, de Bogotá, que es más fácil, más claro para entender, much easier to understand. Okay, and then there I studied French, Portuguese, and German in Bogota, and Espanol. And I moved to Europe, and I studied in French, international relations, and Geneva. And at the same time, I got into Slavic languages, and it was in former Yugoslavia. After that, in the Soviet Union, and then I went to graduate school in Poland, where I studied various Slavic languages. And so my Polish is from 1979 to 1981. But I guess you move your papa because I really love Polish and I can remember it very well. Then I moved to Japan. I immigrated to Japan. So I've been out of Japan a few years, since 1981. But it's been my home for about 43 years. And with a lot of travel around the world as a professor, I had a lot of time. And I became a Japanese citizen. And so I learned mostly over the past 40 years, I speak Asian languages. I studied Chinese literature at the Kyushu University in Japan. And I also taught in Taipei and Shanghai. I taught management. And I also taught my students, a lot of graduate students were all Chinese. So when I was teaching, we used Chinese. And so then also I taught at the Chulalongkorn University in Thailand over 12 years, 3 months years. So I've lived there 3 or 4 years altogether, but split up 3 months a year or so. And then the other Asian languages like Indonesian, Malay, and of course Lao. And then I got into Nepali, a long time ago, Hindi, and then Tibetan. And then I went back to Europe, and I mean European languages, learned Greek. Then I learned Afrikaans and went to South Africa, and then I studied the other Slavic languages. I studied 7 other Slavic languages. So I've studied 9 Slavic languages, depending on what you call language or whatever, or dialect.
Right.
But my first Slavic language is Slovene, but I changed that to Serbo-Croatian in 1977. After studying in Switzerland, I rode a bicycle along the coast of Yugoslavia. And so Serbo-Croatian, which is kind of not very, how should I say, correct to say nowadays for some people, but yeah, Serbo-Croatian. And, but I can I can speak Serbian, I can speak Croatian, I can speak Bosnian, I can speak Montenegrin. So what the hell? One language or four. Um, and then later Czech and with Slovak and things, etc. So yeah, I love the Slavic languages. Germanic, yeah, mainly. I worked in Germany for a while. I studied for German. Norwegian, I studied in Poland and visited there even this year, just recently. And I've studied some Danish and some Swedish, and we see now I have Afrikaans in Dutch, but the Dutch never speak to you in Dutch, so I speak to them in Afrikaans. And yeah, okay. So, and then the Romance languages, of course, número uno es Espanhol, but eu falo português muito bem também. Because I really love Portuguese, Brazilian Portuguese. And I read all the novels of Jorge Amado. I don't know if you know who he is. And I got into Brazilian music. He's from 100 years ago. And of course, I was studied in French and Italian, more by using it rather than studying it, and a little bit of Romanian. And then I studied some Galician, Gallego, but it's in Catalan, but those are easy to understand anyway. Yeah, and a smattering of other languages here and there, like Farsi and Arabic and Ivrit and on and on. But yeah, I guess like my main thing are these Asian languages, Slavic languages, Romance, Germanic. Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty dirty.
Yeah, it's quite a variety, and so I was going to comment to you that I think my polyglot life is somewhat unusual in the fact that I've been involved in very different families deeply. In other words, I studied in Spanish, and I did all my courses in Spanish, and I studied in French, and I studied in Polish, and read Russian literature, and did masters in Chinese literature, in Japanese, and Japanese is a language I spoke most of my life since I immigrated there. So it's quite a variety, rather than,
right,
let's say, just European.
Mm-hmm. But I can see that a lot of them, you use them as a vehicle for another goal, meaning not the language itself, but you, like you said, you studied in Spanish. You use Japanese.
Yeah.
What I mean.
Always, I learned a language. I mean, I just like learning languages, but for the utility of it, it makes it possible to do something. And it's always been that way in my life. I think I wouldn't have been able to lead the life I led without the languages. For example, my first big job, two major corporations. One was a paper company, American Paper Company, Westvaco, then later GE, General Electric, when it was the biggest company in the world under Jack Welch. So I got hired into corporate marketing, right at the very top of the organization, mainly because I knew Japanese well, and we were handling Japanese customers. And so, and then later, so from 1991, I quit GE and I started teaching cross-cultural management in Japan, mainly, but also in Thailand and Shanghai and Taipei. And that required knowing Japanese, because I taught in Japanese, taught in Chinese, and in Thailand, both Thai and English. But I did write a book in Thai about management, Japanese management, so I got into the language. So yeah, it was a vehicle to work. I've always felt that now, if you're into language and you can make a living from it, fantastic. But even long ago, okay, so I'm a young-looking old geezer. I'm 68 years old, and so back in the 70s, I even thought, okay, I love languages, but I think I better study, for example, management.
Okay.
So I can always, I love literature. I studied Latin American literature, Slavic literature, Chinese literature. But what do? You become a professor of literature, but not that many universities have those programs and such. And so, but everybody wants management or business, right? Sure. So, yeah. I've always been kind of practical in that sense. So I always had kind of a goal towards that.
Right. But speaking different languages made you different than other persons,
Same with
right?
from other people. I mean, because for example, the job that I got at GE, it was just after I finished a master's in international management, and it was a well-paid position. I was flying around in private jets and at quarterly meetings with the top of the organization, Jack Welch, and everybody, just because of my experience. I mainly use Japanese, but we also went to Mexico, places like that. So just that ability, and I think it was so much more important now than it is now, because now people are starting to, okay, no, I just need my phone and I can translate, and
right.
They're missing out on a lot there, but that's another story.
Yeah.
Knowing languages, in the 70s and 80s, in particular, in the 90s, always, led to some profit, the ability to earn, etc. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand. Like he still does, but no phones.
Yeah, of course it does, but more competition. I mean, we're all going to be pushed out of the labor force sooner or later by AI, by automation, etc. So it's a different world coming. Yeah.
Right. Oh, wow, that's, I mean, a wonderful journey overall. And so I'm really curious about how you go about language learning. So if you want to start a language from scratch tomorrow, how would you go about it?
Yeah, but Alvaro, it always depends on what language and already what experience you have, right?
Good point. Yeah.
Let me give you two extremes. Okay, so prvýkrát, keď Čulko hovoríte slovenčinu, veľmi dobře rozumel som, ale nemohol povedať slovenčinu. So first time I heard somebody speak Slovak, I understood very well, but I couldn't answer in Slovak. I answered in Polish and Croatian mix. And so Slovak was a language I understood immediately. Just like perhaps, if you're listen to Catalan or something, or Gallego, maybe, you get it.
Yeah.
Okay? If you're flexible mind. So that's one extreme. And the way you learn, so the way I learned Slovak, and the way I say Slovak was, I just wrote, now I could just use AI, but then I got an exchange partner, and I wrote a story about myself, which led to me finally writing a whole book about myself called A Life in 30 Languages. But I wrote it in Slovak and had him help me with it, check it. And then I memorized it so that I can get a better feel for the grammar and such. Because if you speak, you speak Polish, so you know that if you hear Czech or Slovak or Ukrainian, I don't know if you study them, but you can grasp a lot of what's being said. And if you know another language across there, okay, so that's one area. Now, what's the other extreme? Tibetan. So I've been studying Tibetan on and off for a number of years, and I've really slacked off the last year and a half. It takes much longer to learn Tibetan. It's not related to any language I've ever studied.
Okay.
It has a different writing system, but I mean, I use the most difficult writing systems in the world most of my life, Japanese and Chinese. So, Thai. So that doesn't throw me off completely, but let's just say it takes a great effort. Okay? So which one do you want me to address? The one that takes a great effort? If I could start a language that has nothing to do with languages I know, let's say Turkish, I want to learn Turkish. I think some things, I can't say that, even in the case of Turkish, when somebody knows a lot of languages, then already I know the structure of Turkish because it's similar to Japanese, it's similar to Hindi, Nepali, it's SOV. So
Okay.
I studied Hungarian, so I know it doesn't distinguish between he and she. It has certain, characteristics which I already know, so I can get used to. And the more languages you know, the different the more apt you are to already notice something.
Uh-huh.
So the advice I'm giving now is not necessarily for a beginner who's learning their first foreign language,
Right.
but saying to you, if you want to get into languages, the more you learn and the greater variety of languages you learn, the easier it is to learn new ones.
Yeah, because they're all connected somehow, right? But I'll ask you about this later again. But in that case that you talked about with Turkish, so did you just look that up a little bit before getting started? Like, that Turkish just has the same structure as Hindi, or
No, I just heard that over the years because I mean I knew that even before we had the internet.
okay,
So nowadays you can teach yourself so much. You could pick a language in the world, and then you could say we're gonna discuss it tomorrow,
mm-hmm.
and then I could really apply myself using ChatGPT 4.0. I'd come in and tell you all about the structure of the language and everything, but not speak it necessarily, right?
Right.
I mean, because, okay, so I have my YouTube channel and I work for Ling and an app, and I make videos for them too.
Mm-hmm.
And I just finished a video on Telugu. So I don't know any, their video language. I don't know Tamil or whatever, but I'm able to ask the right questions. I understand how language functions, so I know what to. And so I always approach it the same way. And so if, for example, I think I base it on this Ling app that the first sentences are just basic, like, I am a woman, you're a man, she is a girl, he is a boy. Now, you would see that do you speak Russian?
I started learning it, but not I don't speak it yet. I can understand a little bit,
right?
but
So almost, I don't know how all the languages function in Europe. There's some of the more, right, Basque or something. I don't know how that functions,
mm-hmm.
but your Indo-European languages, they're all going to have an aorist. They're going to have it to be used in that case, right? I am, you are, he is,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
Okay. But when you start going around the world, many languages don't, including Russian, okay, which is the exception among Slavic languages. Yeah, one Maltik, okay, so he's a boy, all right? There's no on okay, so there's none of that. So I know right away, okay, what am I going to look here? I want to ask and see when you construct a sentence which is equivalence. In other words, you have a subject is something. Okay, so in grammatical terms, a predicate nominative. All right, so like I'm a man, so he is a boy. Now, many languages don't use any verb in that case. For example, Thai doesn't use any verb. Many Telugu doesn't. I found out, okay, Telugu doesn't use it that way, but what happens when you use an adjective? Like, so she is beautiful. Oh, they actually do, but they use a different kind of verb. It's not necessarily is. It's more like it has a different meaning, you see? So you start to be aware of what you should look for.
Okay.
And how languages can vary. But if you just stay within, if you're learning Spanish, French, Italian, Portuguese, and Romanian, and Galician, and Catalan, and you speak English and German and Norwegian, Danish, and Swedish, you're a polyglot who speaks maybe 11 languages, but in your mind, you only have a very limited structure of language. Right. You can have a definite article that comes that is like it, something like that. You have a few strange things, but basically you're used to something like that. But the greater the variety that you have, you know which questions to ask. You know what to look for, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I understand.
So I've been making videos now about languages that I don't speak, but I'm learning, and I don't have to speak in order to make a video about them because I know the right questions to ask, and I can get either voices from the app, or there's excellent AI voices that you can use, native sounding voices, to give example sentences. So if you know what you're talking about, you can explain, just about any language. So, I mean, when you talk, I'm not the kind of person you say, hey, well, how do you learn languages like that? I give you a simple answer because, I mean, I'm 68 years old and I've been studying intensely for 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
So at age 18, I was learning in Spanish, as I said, Portuguese, French, and German. Okay, that is 50 years ago. All right. And I haven't stopped since then. So my way of studying is not the normal everyday way, right?
Right, of course. Yes, mostly about, like, once you understand the structure of the language, like you said, so you use AI or those tools to create sentences, and you use it that as input, or you try to speak right away, or what's your approach in that sense?
Okay, so the big question: do you speak right away, or do you wait? Okay, so looking at the polyglots of the world, so you got like a Steve Kaufman, who's been around a few years more than I have, and we've had some similar experience. I just had a little bit more. Now he is okay. I shut up and I just read, listen.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have Benny, who says, okay, we'd come flu in 3 months. Just start speaking the moment you wake up. Your first things. Where am I at? It depends on the language. As I said, when I learned the other Slavic languages, I tended to speak right away because when I truly met, my first conversation in Slovak was with 3 guys from Slovakia in a sauna at a Buddhist monastery in an island in Thailand.
Nice.
And they were all speaking Slovak. And so I just joined in the conversation. And they realized that I could understand everything. And what I said to them, they could understand me. They realized I wasn't speaking Slovak. Said, what are you speaking? I said, I'm mixing Polish and they heard the Polish too, but I'm mixing with Croatian and such. And so then I'm just listening to what they're saying and then changing it as I hear, oh, that's how you say it, right? Okay. So yeah,
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about. Like, you were speaking Polish, not Slovak to them, right?
Yeah, but I mean, it's the same thing. So, okay, I've seen situations where there was a Spanish girl talking to Italian girl, and neither of them they just speak English. They only spoke their own language, and they just went on for hours. Sometimes they got, what was that? No entiendo, no capisco. ¿Qué cosa? And then they figured it out, right? So it is negotiating meaning.
Right.
So getting back to answering that question, because I know I'm going off on a tangent, it all depends. If communication is the number one thing, like it was while I was speaking Slovak, or with the Italian girl and the Spanish girl, they didn't care. I'm not here to learn Italian necessarily. She's not there to learn Spanish, but let's learn to understand each other. And then, or for example, another good example is in Japan, I had students who were Nisei. In other words, their parents were immigrated from Japan into one was from Bolivia and the other one's from Brazil. And they became boyfriend and girlfriend. And their Japanese was okay, but they preferred just to speak their own language. And so he spoke Portuguese and she spoke Spanish, and then it's on a portuñol,
Mm-hmm.
and they got into. So to them, that's speaking right away, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Some other languages, no, you need a lot of input first.
Yeah.
There are Slavic languages. You can memorize some sentences, but put Bulgarian aside and Macedonian aside and say, when you have 6 or 7 cases, even saying a simple sentence like, I live in that red house, that red house is mine, it's simple in English or Spanish or something like that. But when you have cases, no, it's not. You that so you're going to have a lot more input, a lot more study, and then the approach there. The approach I take in that case is writing what I want to say and learning what I want to say and memorizing it and using that as a base.
Okay. So then you use translation there? So you think about the sentence, then translate it into, say, let's say you're learning a Slavic language for the first time, like Polish, for example. So then you just, I want to say whatever. You just translate it with AI or with, and write it down.
That. Okay, so any of you listeners out there, let's say that you don't know Slavic language and you're going to speak Polish. So, yeah, you can use an app or whatever and learn some general sentences. You can. I advise using a variety of ways, but I also advise simply writing, being able to say what your name is, how old you are, where you're from, what you like, what you're doing, da-da-da-da. Maybe you come up with 20 or 30 facts about yourself, and then questions like you learn to say, like, my name is Tim, what is your name? Okay. And things like that, right? So you learn those and you memorize them. And you need to do so because the grammar doesn't allow you to simply put the words and string them together, right? Like in English. Okay. So I would advise that. You can, it's getting easier and easier with AI. And I find that everybody's getting better. Google's getting better. Bing is getting better. DeepL, I wouldn't say DeepL is necessarily the best. They claim they are, but I've seen mistakes. So let me add here that I've always felt that it's good to also use a dual text. So therefore, when I wrote a book about my life, I'm now translating it into other languages. And it's like published in Chinese, Italian, the Spain Portuguese is out, and now Japanese is coming, et cetera, et cetera. And so I also get it recorded narrated, all right? So you can use a dual text also to learn a language. And the most important thing is this, you need to have an understanding, right? Comprehensible input.
Yeah.
But even something difficult can become comprehensible input if you do it that way. In other words, if you have a dual text or if you get help, if AI and also maybe a native speaker, somebody knows the language well, helps you create a dual text, which you memorize.
So then you go over your native language first and then the target language, like a paragraph at a time, or?
I'm sorry, could you give that one more time, please?
Yeah, like when with dual text, like do you read the language, your language first, and then the target language?
So the way I structure my book is I do paragraph per paragraph. And the reason I do that is because you can't do page if it's published as also as an ebook, because the page depends on, how big you make the font. And so I always say, well, if you, let's say that you're looking at the Italian one, and as a Spanish speaker, even if you have never studied Italian, you could try to read the Italian paragraph first and see if you could understand, and you probably would get a pretty good understanding. But then you would, so your position is to read the Italian first and read the English, or I'm making various combinations. I'm going to put it in Italian, Spanish too. You could look at the Spanish or any language you know well, and make sure that you do it to make sure you understand everything there. Okay. There's various ways to study in that. So one is you want to first maybe try just for enjoyment. Just in a case like that, if you're reading Italian, parla italiano anche, no?
Sì.
You haven't studied Italian? Okay. So let's say that you haven't studied Italian, and so you're just reading it and seeing how much you can understand as you go through it, right? And then you're kind of just getting the story, what's going on there. And then you go back and say, okay, let's make sure I understand everything there. Okay. And you notice things.
Okay.
Oh, how you say that word. Imperare, I always thought was interesting because I don't know it in any other language. Do you? Spanish, Portuguese? We only have estudiar or aprender.
Right. Yeah.
It is. There's no cognate for it. Okay.
Right.
So I would notice things
There's
like
context and yeah. So you look at the target language first, and then go ahead. Sorry.
yeah. If it means something to you,
Yeah, of course.
If I give you a language, nothing, but you can read the alphabet. Okay. So if I give you Japanese, there's nothing you can do with it because you can't read it. Okay.
Yeah.
But if I give you a language which not so hard to pronounce, it's in an alphabet which you do understand. Okay. So can you read Cyrillic?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
And okay, let's say so you've read some Cyrillic. Let's say you've been studying Russian, and so I give you Serbian. Okay, so what do you do with Serbian? All right, so yeah, if you can read, there's only a few letters that are different. So you can first see if you can get the target language, and then check it. All right, but again, let's going back to the person who doesn't know any language and say they're going to learn Polish. If they're doing the dual text method, of course, they should read the language they know well first, understand what that paragraph means, and then listen to it and repeat after it, read it, etc., just to get exposure. And that's studying at a high level. In other words, that's creating comprehensible input at something that is C1 or C2 level. Because the way I write, it's 1 C2, okay? You can still do that even if you are an A1. You can still do that. You just need to understand what you're doing, okay? And it doesn't necessarily mean, I think it's a good combination. I think people who start off will only take on texts that are geared towards the beginner. It's kind of a mistake. You need to get a feeling of what the language sounds like. You need to, it kind of a preview of the future keeps you more interested instead of learning, simple things, right?
There's a story itself. Yeah.
But again, I would say the number one thing, if you're going to learn Polish, I would create, as I said, story about yourself and how to ask questions. So jestem teraz mieszkam w Japonii, jestem Japończykiem, w sensie, że mam paszport japoński. I would say, I'm from Japan since I have a Japanese passport. I could say all these things about my life, right? I could learn to say it. And in Polish, that would be a challenge because of the grammar, right? All those things, because you have, for anybody who's never studied a language that has inflections, and those cases, maybe you don't relate what I'm saying right now, but yeah, if you have, it's like Latin, okay?
Yep.
Yeah, and that's, now, totally different story when you come to a language, when you come over here in Asia. From China down to Indonesia, including, so that's Chinese, Vietnamese, Thai, Lao, Indonesian, Malay, Cambodian, Khmer, and Burmese as the main languages, not even getting those. I cannot get, not the Austro-Indonesian languages, okay? Not the Hmong, et cetera, and the other.
Right.
When you get there, they don't have any inflections. There's no tense, okay? So it's like saying, I eat today, I eat tomorrow, I eat yesterday. Everything's like context. You use a helping, you have aspect verbs or words, like if you said, if you wanted to say, it's like the perfective in a Slavic language. I've eaten everything. Churna and churguola. I've already eaten. And so chur is to eat. Guo means something that's passive. La is completed. So there's various, for example, hai meo or chua in Vietnamese means not yet. So if I say eat not yet, obviously I haven't eaten yet, right? So yeah, you learn a totally different system. Now in these languages, you can start to make sentences much faster. because you just need to know the words and the general sentence structure.
Right.
But that leaves people to say, for example, who study, the one that studied most is Indonesian Malay, because I think one of the reasons it's written in a Latin alphabet, pronounce it. And basically, if you're a Spanish speaker, then it's heaven for you, because basically it follows the same vowel structure.
Okay.
If you're a speaker and you haven't learned to get rid of all those extra sounds in our maybe your pronunciation's off, but for Spanish speakers, it's very straightforward. So they go to that language and they come out saying, oh, this is easy, you know? Because I don't have to worry about he, she, yo como, tú comes, él come, nosotros comemos. I don't have to conjugate per person. I don't have tense, all these things, until you say something complex.
Right.
You know, you can say it's any language. It's simple to say something simple. Well, no, take that back. Again, like in some languages, even something simple is difficult to say. Like a Slavic language, you have to learn something certain. In language like Indonesian Malay, it's simple to say simple things, but when you get to complex sentences, no matter what language you're dealing with, it's going to be complex. And so, but all these languages, they follow. I made a video about that. I said, it's a video saying how are Chinese, Vietnamese, Thai, Lao, Indonesian Malay connected structurally. They're not related. Of course, Thai and Lao are, and Malay and Indonesian are. Okay, but they're the three different groups there in very different languages. But there's so many things about the characteristics of language that when I've taught people who speak, like a Vietnamese speaker, I've taught Thai too. And the reaction is, oh, that makes sense. Of course. Yeah. Right. Why would you have to conjugate a verb? Why would you have to learn? Why would you have to worry about plurals? You know, there's no even in Japanese and Korean, we don't have animate plural. We don't have libro and libros. We don't have book and books, car and cars. We only have car. We only have book. Okay. We say 2 book, 3 book, but we actually use counters, so it gets a little bit, nisatsu, sansatsu, or ibienshu. It gets a little bit complicated there. But we don't, if I say, I forgot my book, I forgot my books, they're the same sentence in all those languages. There's no difference. There's no way you can make it. If you want to say, I forgot 3 books, yes. I forgot many books, yes. Few. But if you just say, I forgot my book, I forgot my books, you cannot express it. There's only context.
Yeah, context, yeah, right.
Okay, so there's no inflections. There's no inflections for singular, plural. There is for animate. We have, of course, I and we and things like that. In Japanese, we have like friend, tomodachi. And tomodachi tachi. We put another tachi at the end. Kodomo, child. Kodomo tachi, the children. We can do that we can use tachi for animate things, but we don't use it for animals, but for humans. But we can't do that. We can repeat a noun like it's done Malay and Indonesian, but in Japanese, then the meaning can be quite different than it's not like a European plural. So if you as a European speaker, unless you've been in this area of the world and your mind gets used to that, you're wondering, huh? It seems easy, but how do you speak without saying tense? Especially as a Spanish speaker. Spanish has an incredible number of tenses. Only beaten out by your neighbor Portugal, which has a future subjunctive, and you don't. You say, cuando yo tenga dinero voy a comprar un carro. But they say, cuando yo tiver dinero vou comprar. So you only beat out by Portuguese. So you're used to that. You get to a language where you lose all that. So then how do you say, if I had money, si hubiera tenido dinero, hubiera comprado un carro, I would have bought a car. How do you say that in Vietnamese or in Chinese? Okay? And you have to learn it. So you have to learn a different way of thinking. And you say, wait a second, you just said the simple past in that case. So you said if, dot, and simple past. But that's how they react to that. They don't need all that extra stuff that we need because you're programmed to think that way.
Yeah, it even happens to me with Polish at times that when I want to say something more complex, like you said, if I had money, whatever, like how would I say that in Polish? It's like everything's more simple, right?
Nie ma pieniędzy, jeżeli miałbym pieniędzy, if I would have, jeżeli miałbym pieniędzy, ja byłbym, yeah? You have to use past and then it's complicated. Yeah, exactly. You have to wonder because, especially as I say, if you come from Spanish, Portuguese, or Italian, and Romanian to a certain extent, but I'm not very good at Romanian. I can't tell the full grammar. Then it's like, wow, French, I think, is poor in this aspect. They don't pronounce everything anyway, so you can't even tell what they're saying.
Yeah, that's different. Yeah.
But if you know what I mean, they're supposed to distinguish between certain verbs, but you don't hear it anyway. So what's the difference? But yeah, if you're coming from, that's your expectations. And I know I'm going off on all these tangents, and if the question is still what do you do first? Do you listen or do you speak? Again, it depends, as I say, and I made it clear now. What knowledge do you have? If you're learning Indonesian Malay, go ahead. You can say anything because it's quite easy. Saya mau makan, I want to eat. Saya mau makan nasi goreng, I want to eat fried rice. And then say, kami mau makan, we want to eat. We don't even have to change the word for to eat, right? And then so you can start to make all these simple sentences.
Right. But I guess that works when you're ordering food in a restaurant. But if you're meeting friends, I want to go deeper. That's a different scenario, right?
Yeah. That's when you, okay. So I've learned a lot from doing translation of my own book and things like that. And now that I make, YouTube videos and such, I've learned to think a lot about certain things. As I said, because of AI now, I can analyze. Okay, I did a recent one on Amharic, spoken in Ethiopia, and I got 55,000 views in 2 weeks. The majority of them were Ethiopian. Mm. Some of them were loving me. One guy sent me an email saying that I should talk to the Minister of Education because the way I explain Amharic and using English is so much clearer than the way they teach it, and on and on. I don't speak Amharic, but I know the right questions to ask. And so I'm basing it on working, one of the job I do is I make videos for a company called Ling. It's an app like a Duolingo.
Yep.
But they more obscure languages, like all this like. Okay. So I'm making this for Ling, and so they added Amharic. So could you make it for Amharic? So I'm using their example sentences and their patterns. And just like I told you, that first pattern is, I'm a woman, you're a man, he is a boy, she is the girl. Okay. So you could test certain things that you want to find out. When you want to do something, how do you say you want to do something? So I just finished Telugu and I was finding out, okay, so that depends on whether you're saying you want to do something or you want something.
Okay.
So there are various things that you begin to know. So the questions that you have to ask. And so there's so many ways that languages can vary, I can get it wrong. I get it wrong sometimes in my view, but I would say most of the time, no, because I do thorough research. And we're in such an amazing age now where you can do that. Yeah, I mean, if you're willing to pay the money, if you're using free versions of AI and such, you don't get the same power. But if you're willing to pay the money and use AI and know the right questions to ask, but don't people out there listening, if you think you could just, really do an analysis without a lot of background, you're gonna get a wake up call because AI lies to you,
Okay.
and it doesn't do it purposely, but it has misinformation out there because other people said it,
Right.
and also it misunderstands things, and also it goes by certain patterns. It kind of says what you sometimes it kind of says what it thinks you want to hear.
Oh.
So you really got to be careful. You really got to be careful in the explanations. But there's so much we can do with AI. Again, you go and learn Polish. You don't know any Slavic language. Well, first, let's get AI to. You could start with Google. How do I say, my name? What is your name? That's going to get it right 95% of the time. It's not too complicated. ChatGPT 4o will get it right 98% of the time. Yeah. So you just go with that and just build on it.
So that's the language island concept, that you sort of prepare specific sentences and you memorize them, or?
Okay. Yeah. Again, I would suggest you use customized material along with whatever textbook that you might want to use. So let's say that. So it also depends on the language. The great thing about AI now is that I can get it to work on obscure languages. So I was amazed by people saying to me, "Oh, I could hardly find any material on Amharic, and this was very useful." And I started thinking, well, if you ask the right questions to AI, it can help you out a lot. There is, but it's not always correct. But yeah. So it's kind of funny now. But let's say you're studying Spanish or French or one of those languages where there are hundreds of textbooks, right? A plethora of sources. I would still create personalized dialogues and monologues. So just think about it. Just this way. You're living in Poland. Let's say when you first got there. And so now you want to go to the dentist. And so, you're going to have to learn that put out or not, or this or that. And so you're going to think of beforehand, what are all the things that I want to talk about? And then, so now with AI, you could get a whole thing on that. And you can, I even pay money, pretty expensive money for good, AI voices and such, because I want natives like sounding it. You have to know how to use them too, and say what you want. But there's really good materials that you can create for other people and for yourself.
So you simulate those conversations, right? Okay.
Yeah. So you simulate what you're going to run into. And so while you're living, you move to Poland, and then you have to find an apartment. So you spend a couple hours studying all the things about how do you say lease, how do you say how much is the rent, how much is the deposit, is the water, how do I pay the water, how to pay the electricity. You learn how to say all those things, and you learn how to understand the answers. And then you go do that. And that's probably one of the best lessons that you're going to get, right? Because you studied it, you're going to go use it, and it's important to you.
Yep.
So that's my suggestion. When but people in different situations, some people are just sitting in their home, not planning on anywhere, studying a language. That's fine. Okay. But we have the internet now. So, you're in Poland, I'm in Vietnam, we're talking. So if you wanted, maybe you could prepare for a conversation with the exchange partner or something, still you can do that.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, I'm a very strong believer in domain-focused learning. And domain means like a certain area.
Okay.
And of course, you still go through your grammar books and all those. You could use textbooks and such, but it gets boring.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it makes personalized material, and then again, domain. Okay, so an example: when I started learning Tamang, which is a language spoken mainly in Nepal, but also Sikkim in India and around there in the Himalayan area, 5% of Nepalis speak it. It's a Tibetan. Tamang actually means like the horse traders in Tibetan, and then I say Sherpa, and Sherpa means just the Eastern people.
Okay.
In Tibetan language. So when I studied Tamang, I had students in Japan who were Tamang, especially one girl who spoke Tamang fluently, as that was her first Nepali in Tamang, but Tamang is what she learned at home. And not all Tamangs do. The ones that move to the city sometimes don't even speak their own language. They just speak Nepali. And so what did I do? I knew I wanted trekking. I thought, okay, so I'd ask her, where can I find some clean water? Is the trail mainly going up, or does it go down, or is it a mix? How long does it take to get to X village? Is the trail very easy to follow? Is it overgrown with vegetation? Things like that. Normally things that you wouldn't learn even in A2 or whatever, right? You be very specific. You learn how to say those things. Of course, you learn the basic greetings, where you're from, what's your name, and things like that. But you learn those things. And you know what? It really helps. Not only that, even though I speak Nepali, and most of them speak Nepali, when I speak to them in Tamang, I have a look like that. They just, oh, they can't believe it. And so it's very rewarding. And then again, it's very domain specific. Because I can ask things like that, they somehow assume I'm very fluent in the language.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't know how to say, do you have a knife? I want to peel this orange. I have no idea how you say that. I don't even know how to say, can you give me a plate? I could learn how to say it if I thought it. I never wrote that one down, I think. Maybe I did. I didn't. Okay, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, but if you concentrate on those type of things that you're going to use when you're going to meet people with that language, and you concentrate on saying it fluently, repeating it and repeating it, repeating it, and then also knowing what the answer could be, learn possible answers, okay? And so what I mean is you need your text, you need it corrected, and it's good to have it recorded, okay? Now you have everything you need to learn to sound fluent. I made a video about this. How people misunderstand fluency. You can be fluent at A1. It's just domain specific.
Oh, right.
There are people who are C1 level, but they're not fluent. There are native speakers who are not fluent.
Okay, so what do you mean by fluent then? That you can go ahead.
It's not okay. It's not fluent. What does fluent mean? Fluent means it flows. Con fluidez.
Yeah.
Right? And let's say that you stutter, okay? And excuse me if you have the stuttering problem, but if you stutter, you cannot speak fluently. Okay, I know it's a serious problem, and I don't mean to offend anybody. That's not speaking fluently, and those people know it, right? So there are many monolinguals that don't speak. Okay, and then we can say domain. Can you speak fluently about quantum physics?
Not even Spanish.
No. Okay, not even in Spanish. Right. So even in mother tongue, there's many things we cannot speak fluently about because we don't have the knowledge, we don't have the vocabulary, etc. Okay? So what I say is that you should seek to be fluent at whatever level you're at. Just be fluent in what you're going to.
Yeah, the flow idea helps. Yeah, that I understand.
Yeah. So let's say when you ride to Poland and you're like, cześć, jak się masz? How are you? You knew some basics, but then you did study how to rent an apartment, and you learned the numbers, everything you need to know, and then you went and jesteś tutaj w Polsce już ile lat? How many years have you live here in Poland? They'll ask you that. And no, I just got here 4 days ago. And I started studying Polish 2 weeks ago. But I studied 10 hours, and I studied this, how to talk to you about renting an apartment, right? Now, once the conversation goes, it's like when you're traveling in a third world country or anywhere where doesn't have to be third world, but anywhere, you see these little children, hawker, selling something to tourists, and maybe they can give you a good spiel in 12 languages.
Yeah.
Hola, hablas español. Si yo y no quieres comprar agua es muy mal, or this.
Yeah, true.
I will say tú verás, they said, they'll just change the language. They learn. It sounds like, and they say it very well. They sound like almost like a native because they learn to imitate. This is how they earn money. They don't want to starve. And then people are so impressed. They sound like so good. Oh, buy something from the kid.
True. Yeah, it's true.
We can do
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not into this, oh, somebody says, I wouldn't say I'm fluent in any language until I understand every idiom. And well, then they're not fluent in any language because you don't know all the idioms in Spanish. I don't know all the idioms in English. There are things I can guess in context,
Of course.
I don't know. Can you understand all the vocabulary? A good example. I learn English sometimes better through other languages, especially Greek. I was reading a book. Do you know the word if I say egocentric, you understand, right?
Mm-hmm.
Egocentric. Okay? What if I say polycentric?
Okay. Or like city center or like center in the city or
Egocentric is you
poly like many, yeah.
Yeah, poly. Yeah, exactly. It's Greek, poly.
Mm-hmm.
So centered towards others. Oh no. Sorry, I gave the wrong example. What if I said allocentric? Well, I'll give you the answer. I didn't even say poly, not poly, but allos means other, okay? In Greek. So while I was reading, I saw allocentric. And I thought, oh, I understand that.
Oh, like altruistic. Yeah.
Yeah, because allos is in Greek, is other, right?
Yep.
So you guys out there who say, oh, don't claim you speak a language unless you can da. Well, come on. I mean, again, you can be fluent on certain domain, somebody can be fluent in many, many, many domains, and then that's somebody who has a high level. But somebody could be fluent in less domains, and somebody who studied the language longer, knows more vocabulary, is not fluent because they don't speak.
Yeah, true.
They don't speak. They hesitate. They think too much.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's true. All right. So, well, I forgot to say, but I'll link to your channel down below, of course, if people want to watch more of your videos.
Thank you.
But any final message, Tim, for language learners out there?
Yeah. Okay. So it's been fun. So I imagine most language learners are not my age. They haven't reached their late 60s. And so they haven't had the same experiences. And I can't imagine a life without it. So when I was 18 years old, I spoke English and Spanish. And all right. And then I added well over 40 more, at least 30 more in terms of being able to communicate over the years. And it's been fun. So go for your journey, enjoy it. And I would say be practical and really think. I mean, okay, if you're into studying a language that's a dead language or whatever, that's kind of person who's really into linguistics, et cetera, and language. I'm not talking to you about this, but you general language learners out there, you want to use the language to communicate, to connect with others, understand different cultures, enjoy traveling, job opportunities, etc. Well, it's a great trip. I've had a great trip. Go for it. Just continue learning every day. Be consistent. And again, focus on what you need to know.
Good. I like that. All right. So yeah, thank you very much.
Quite long. Yeah, my pleasure.
And yeah, we'll be in touch, and I hope everyone enjoyed it.
Yeah, okay. And you guys out there, you can always contact if you have my YouTube there. So you see my Facebook, you see my my polyglot dreams, where I have books and such. If you want to try using a dual language reader, and so yeah, just contact me. I'm a very sociable person. I get busy at times, but I try to respond. So and I always appreciate the sharing my experiences.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
Okay, muchas gracias por la oportunidad.
Nada.
People will speak every you listen to understand Spanish.
A lot of them are learning the language, so probably I've done interviews in Spanish as well, so I do both. So yeah. So.
Bueno, de todos modos, fue un gran placer y I hope we can do it again. Okay.
Me alegro.
I następny raz po polsku.
Dobrze. Po polsku następny raz. Dobra.
Okay.
Thank you, Tim. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much for watching this interview. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was helpful for you. And if you want to know more about language learning, language acquisition, like, what's the best way to learn a language, ideas for language learning, the best resources at different levels. Here, you can find the whole playlist with all the interviews I've done so far with different researchers, teachers, polyglots, and so on. And finally, right here, you smash this guy right in the face to subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.